Well, I found out that there was a Some Like It Hot film festival that was going to be up in Woolridge, Illinois. The date was September 23rd, 2007. And I know my brother, Mark, is a very, very big Tony Curtis fan too. You know, we just grew up, we just liked Tony Curtis. And I thought, what a great birthday present would be to basically surprise him. So we took him in the car, headed up there, didn't tell him what we're doing until we got up there and he saw the Some Like It Hot Film Festival. And he only thought it was just going to be a Some Like It Hot film. He goes, well, you kind of traveled an awful long way. I said, no, there's a kicker. I said, Tony Curtis is a special guest. And all of a sudden it just was exploded into just pure joy. When I met Tony Curtis, when he met Tony Curtis, and when my wife Mary, and it was so cool too because I told Tony after I gave him all his items and stuff like that, I said, this is my brother Mark, and he grabbed my brother's hand. He goes, hello, brother Mark. And Tony appeared at the Hollywood Collectors Show at the time when we were there. So not only did I get a chance to have the photographs that we took of Tony and I, and then also my family, we brought all that there, and I also presented him my story, and I told him, I said, I'm going to do what I can to get this published. And he was, you know, it was really cool too because he kind of like patted me on the shoulder and he kissed Mary's hand, and it was great. It was so great, you know, and he was really moved. I mean, that I wrote this story for him.
Now, you've talked about collecting the Beatles signatures. Do you collect signatures of people other than the Beatles?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, when I started collecting the autographs, it's just like the way I collected when I was a kid. I collected everything. I mean, you know, from one artist to another. I wasn't, you know, when I first started, I wasn't there for that signing, but I'm there for a piece of history. In other words, those individuals, whether it was the Beatles, it was Elton John, Jimi Hendrix, Otis Redding, they were there and they signed it. And I thought, well, this is the closest I'm going to be able to get to that history. And that's what inspired me to collect autographs. But the main thing is that I also had to make sure that what I bought or what I collected was the right thing, the authenticated. So that's why I went ahead and did a lot of research on autographs and everything like that. Matter of fact, I also published a Beatles autograph study several years ago. And so I really do my homework as far as getting a story from the person who got it. And once I know and everything, that comfort level is there for both parties, that's when it really becomes, well, I said it becomes a party. It's fun. Oh, the neat part about collecting is just the piece of history. You know, being a part of something that was a happening at that moment, at that time. You know, I mean, I may not have been there, but they were. And they basically scripted something, either on a photo or a page or a sheet music or whatever, but they were there in that moment in time. And for me as a collector, that was, I mean, that's the closest I could get, and that's what I was. I mean, when I was a kid, I was so into the entertainment, and the thing was, I was always visual, and so therefore, when I decided to do that, it was pure bliss.
What did the Beatles have to do with Hollywood legend Tony Curtis? And how did a collector in Indiana, USA capture this treasure in his collection? Collector's Catch will show you how they got there.
When he saw the Pepperhead, okay, he looked at me and he said, you know, I never ever thought I would ever see this. He said, because when Brian Epstein contacted me and wanted to use my image on the Sgt. Pepper, he goes, I was thrilled because I was a Beatles fan. He said, but to have this in front of me, you know, at the later ages, you know, later days of my life, he goes, this is just a gift. We took a picture of me holding the Pepperhead together, and it looks like Tony's kind of like he's not smiling. Those are tears. when I told him the whole story about that, and I put my arm around him, and it's like, this guy, we never met before, and I'm putting my arm around this guy. When he saw the image of himself, my guess is when he was like 25 years old. And, I mean, he was in his 80s and he was in a wheelchair.
Where does Tony Curtis appear on the Sgt. Pepper album?
Well, I think it's like maybe third row from the top and maybe about 9 or 10 images over. But one thing about it is he circled it, so he knew where he was, which was, to me, his most important thing anyway.
The Tony Curtis head. So it made it all the way from England over to the United States, and it's in your collection. Tom Fontaine, thank you for appearing on Collector's Catch.
It has been an honor and it's been a pleasure, and I thank you so much.
At Collector's Catch, the star's the collection, and you might have the next star of the show. Do you have a collection with an interesting history? How did you acquire that collection? What was its journey? Contact Collector's Catch by liking this channel or emailing us at the address below. You could have the next star of Collector's Catch in your hands. Contact us today.